Ronna, it's a great pleasure to talk with you this morning. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh,
New Canaan
absolutely.
has New Canaan has invested heavily into school climate, particularly through the emotional intelligence framework, as a part of the commitment to educating the whole child. How did that process influence your decision to use a product like Class Creator? And I guess the wider question is, were there any factors in that initiative that prompted the district to think about the class creation process?
They actually mesh very well together. I think we started using Class Creator before the district actually made the big investment in social emotional learning. But since they did, one of the biggest things that teachers do at the beginning of the year is create a classroom community. And they do that by creating a charter. And the students actually are the ones that establish shared goals. And it's an ideal way to set the tone for the classroom for the year. Class Creator allows us to balance those classes. So there are students with who may have emotional needs, who may who have different academic and different social needs. And so Class Creator allows us to put those students in balanced classrooms, which is a great beginning to the year. And it's a great way to start that classroom charter and that classroom community.
So, given the tools that come out of the initiative that we were just talking about, um, how did those, or how does Class Creator help you to implement those tools into those balanced classes?
You mean like the mood meter and ruler and all those?
Yeah, so you've got some good strategies there, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I enjoyed reading about the mood meter and just being able to gauge a student's mood, or um, the meta moment, where you just sort of take a moment to think about how you're going to
Right,
react. And they're the
right.
tools that you're using. Do you find that there's a way that you
Mhm.
can actually then say, all right, given the fact that we have those tools, I can use that as my background thinking to actually think about the class creation process?
Yes, actually, the teachers get to know their students very well through those tools. And when it comes time to think about next year's classes, they have a very good understanding of those students' needs. And they're able to input some of that either through the survey or through their own input into Class Creator, so that when they start to make their classes for next year, they can really take a look at those students and what they've put in there.
So I was also reading through the goals document for the district, which I've found quite interesting reading as I looked through the headline goals there. And goal number one of the new Canaan Schools District aims to improve student learning through multiple and varied assessments. Um, Learning can also be influenced, I'd like to just put that out there, by other environmental factors, for example, the classroom. What kind of benefits are you seeing from using Class Creator to help contribute to that goal?
Well, Class Creator lets us use a lot of different data points when we're creating classes. So we're able to really look at the whole child, not just academically, but socially, emotionally. And like I said before, a lot of good teacher input. So all those together really give us a good picture of who that student is. And then it helps us to create the classes with needs that are balanced for the teacher. So the teacher is not spending a lot of time maybe dealing with some behavior issues because their class may be a little bit overloaded with that, but they're really able to do the teaching that they want to do because those classes are very balanced.
Do you get a sense that the students actually know that that's happening as well? Like, do the students look around and go, "This class works for me"? Do they, like, we look at it saying, "Oh, we're creating balanced classes," but what sort of perception do you think the students get from that?
It's interesting because students always want to be with their friends, and sometimes their
Yeah,
friends aren't the best influence on them.
yeah, of
Um,
course.
so I think they can see that through the teacher. There are definitely students who know when there are quite a few behavior issues in a classroom, and students can be very sensitive to that. So I think from that perspective, I think they probably realize that the classes are a little better balanced because they're probably feeling a little bit more supported, a little bit more valued because the class community is really in a place where there are all different learners in there, but there isn't one particular issue that's taking the teacher's attention away.
Okay. And from a practical perspective, what were the challenges that you were facing in, I guess, what you might call a pre-class creator process or a manual process that led you to going down this path. What was the
Oh
implementation
gosh.
process like?
We had teachers using index cards for each student. They would be color coded. And then on the index card, they would put all their different data points. So they would have scores for writing and reading, and then any little anecdotal notes they wanted to put in. And they would get in a room together, and literally for hours, they would start with a blank slate and take these cards and place them in new classes. And then it took them hours after they did the placing to look that over and see if they had balanced the classes. And they had to look at all different things. They had to look at the color coding. They had to look at all the data that was on those little index cards. And then they had to use Velcro to put those on a big board because, the index cards are large. And there was one year when the Velcro didn't work and all the cards got blown away. And then they would take all these cards that were Velcroed to this big board and put it away safely and securely because it was confidential information. And then they'd have to take it out again because they wanted to look it over again and make changes and shifts. I'm not, it probably took 4 hours total to do placement
Oh,
for each
wow.
grade level. It
Okay,
was a very time consuming endeavor.
so clearly there's a convenience and efficiency improvement here. But what I'm also detecting, though, is that because of the information that you can collect and then I guess, more easily use, there are deeper benefits from placing students with Class Creator. Can you expand on that a bit?
Oh, absolutely. Not only are there data points that we were using before we had Class Creator and now we continue to use, but teachers can make notes in there. We've done, when we've created the surveys, we've put in our own material in there. So, for example, if a student is receiving counseling, we might put that in there. If a student comes from a family of divorce, we might put that in there. So we really have the ability to look at a lot of different pieces of information that make up that student.
And you were talking just a moment ago about the big board with the index cards on it and having to put it away because of confidential information. How confident are you about putting that confidential information into Class Creator and then having your staff work with that? Do you see that as a secure environment for you?
Absolutely. I was the administrator in my school, so I was able to assign grade levels to just one person in each grade level. And they would have the ability to look at the entire grade level where all other teachers in that grade level would only be allowed to see their students, which was very helpful when they went to do placement because just that one teacher was able to put up the entire thing so they could look at it. But I have no questions about security in there. Everything's very secure. We've never had a problem.
So we've talked a little bit about functionality there, and it's good to see that security is something you can be very confident of. Is there a standout feature that keeps you coming back?
Well, the new features that you came up with past year, the ability to lock a student was very helpful because sometimes we do place specific students with specific needs first, and the ability to make sure that those students didn't get moved was very helpful. Also, the placement tool, I can't remember the exact name,
Oh,
where
placement
you can
helper.
pick up a student, the placement helper, where you can pick up a
Yes.
student and see which class to, that was amazing because that is where um, a lot of teachers would get stuck when they wanted to move a student. They didn't know which class to move the student into where it wouldn't trigger something that student should be in that class where maybe it was another student who they shouldn't be with, or it threw off the balance of one of the indicators. But that was amazing. So every time you come up with a new feature, it's just very helpful.
Well, we're working on it. um,
Yeah, I know.
let's
And
just.
that's one of the things I love is that it's always evolving. It's always getting better.
Oh, that's really good feedback. I want to also talk about communication. Goal number 2, coming back to the district goals, talks about improved achievement through better communication. And the words stated in that document include responsive, clear, timely, inclusive. And I guess we would all value those things. How has Class Creator helped you to communicate better with parents and the wider school community?
So we always have parents that have problems with their child's placement. And one of the benefits with Class Creator is our administrator is able to say that those classes are completely balanced. And that usually is the answer that the parents will live with. If their child didn't get into another class with one of their friends or something like that, which they always have a problem with, um, when the administrator can say to them, "We've taken multiple data points and all efforts and made the most balanced class as we can," that usually will help to allay their fears if they have any about where their child is.
Does that also translate into the staff within the school? Do you find that staff can more easily communicate about their classes and the dynamics going on in their classes because of this? I guess this is you might describe it as an automated or an online method of organizing classes as opposed to what you were using before with index cards. How do the staff feel
Mhm.
about that?
They are thrilled that they can just input all their information into one place, and it's very easy when Class Creator creates the classes, it's very easy to see how Class Creator created those balances. And of course, you can look at just specific points, specific data points, and see how it's balanced. But they're very comfortable with using the tool. Their conversations about the students are more streamlined when they do get together to look at the classes and maybe make some changes. They can see exactly what the data is on that student, compare it to other students in other classes. It makes it much more streamlined for them, a much better process.
I just want to talk again a little bit about the emotional intelligence tools adopted by the district because I think that's a really interesting connection. And as you said earlier on, that they mesh together quite well. I particularly liked reading about the mood meter and the meta moment. Just having a framework to say, okay, here's a student who's going through an issue or they're in a reactionary situation, and then having some tools to say, well, this is how we're going to deal with that. Can you describe how Class Creator helps you to gain insight into your students from the data it accumulates about your classes? Are you able to input data that's specifically related to those tools that you're using into your class creation process, like include them in the notes or in your surveys?
I think as the year goes on, the teachers get to know those students quite well using those tools, using the mood meter, seeing who's needing meta moments. And that enables them to use the survey and use the tools within the survey to really pinpoint what those child's needs are, whether it's social or emotional or academic or a learning need. Those tools really help them to get to know their students quite well. So, yes, I think they have the ability to put all that information in once they do get to know those students, and those tools really help them to get to know those students.
Can that also help you to predict how students might react in classroom situations? Because then you've got a more high level view of the type of reactions and moods that you might encounter. And again,
Right.
further to that question, do the students get a sense of the fact that things are better for them?
That's a very good question. Y- the first part, yes, you can definitely get a much better view of the students, and using Class Creator easily input that into the platform. Um, I think we've seen improvement in students over the years that we've been using these tools. Yes, I think students have more strategies to use than they did in the past, and they're very comfortable using them. And they know just to go into their little social emotional little toolbox and pull out what they need. So yes, I have seen a difference.
Would you say that that translates well to academic improvements as well? Can you tell us more about that?
Well, it must, because our scores are very high. I think we're the highest in the state of Connecticut, or for some of our academic indicators. So we must be doing something right.
Oh, that's
And I'm
great
sure
news.
those tools, I'm sure those tools are part of the recipe that makes us so successful. Yes.
Well, it's always great to hear when strategies are developed or theorized and then implemented and then worked with together with students and staff, and then together with tools about how to actually create classes that are balanced and work. It's just really great to hear that story. For someone who's considering going down this path and using Class Creator, what would you say to them?
I would say it's a tool that's going to make a big difference when they go to place classes. I would say that it's going to save you time. It's going to be a tool where you will really get to see what the student is as a whole, and looking at all those different indicators of that we use in Class Creator. You will really get a sense of who that student is and where they should be placed and who they should be placed with. And Class Creator just makes it so easy to do that. I mean, I couldn't speak highly enough of the tool. I absolutely love it.
Well, it's such great feedback, and it's been really interesting talking to you about how the class creation process and using Class Creator works so well with the initiatives and the goals of the district. And I just think that's such a really positive story. It's been great to talk with you today, Ronna. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.